I'm more than honored to have here Diana Rodgers, the author of Sacred Cow, this book that you have been listening from me a lot. And Diana was very generous to talk to me today. And we're gonna discuss some of the history behind the book and talk about her recent paper as well, just published. And Diana, thank you again. I'm really honored. We've met in person, but I feel like I know you and we are close because of this book. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for being my number one promoter of the book in Brazil. I'm hearing it's doing really, really well there, and I'm sure that you're a big part of that. So I appreciate all of your energy behind it.
Thank you. Yes, because one of the things that people usually ask about the book and they say, "Oh, what's the biggest insight or why do you talk about this book so much?" And I think it's just for the right reasons. So we're just talking here, and the book, as you explain, it mentions and it goes deep into these big issues that we have around meat consumption in general, but even regarding the production of meat. So I think maybe before we start and dig into the book, in Portuguese, we can introduce. Could you please introduce yourself for the
Sure.
Brazilian audience who don't know you yet, maybe?
Sure. Yes. So my name is Diana Rodgers. I'm a registered dietitian, so that's like a nutritionist, but I also have a graduate degree in human nutrition. And I also spent 18 years living on a working farm. We did organic vegetables and we also did pasture raised animals. We did chickens, pigs, sheep. And as I was studying to become a dietitian, I was realizing all of this talk about eating plant-based and how that's so sustainable. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm living on the most perfect model of sustainability here. And at the same time, I was also, very invested in this way of eating, which really avoids ultra processed foods. And, the food we were growing on the farm was the ideal food, according to everything I've researched. Vegetables, some berries, and meats raised right there as locally as possible, as in tune with the environment as possible. We didn't use any chemicals, and everything that dietitians are taught here in the U.S. and I'm sure it's similar in Brazil. I know it's similar in most other countries is all foods in moderation. There's nothing bad about any food, and even this idea that avoiding ultra processed foods is it's very against the teachings of a dietitian, and they call that orthorexic, like this over concern. It's actually a disorder of eating too healthy, right? Which is crazy because in today's modern food environment, and Rob, my co-author, talks a lot about this, we're set up to be very unhealthy. You can't say everything in moderation when it's cookies and breads and pastas and all these foods that are so unhealthy for us. Um, Anyway, so I wrote a couple of cookbooks, and then I was really just dying to write this book about specifically eating beef, because cows are the most vilified animal. Not only are they, seen as unhealthy to eat, but also destroying the environment, and it's unethical to eat, such a big, beautiful animal. And so in the book and then in the film, I really break this down and talk about why that's not true at all. And I've had the opportunity a couple of times now to go to Brazil and see some of the research that's being done there in sustainability. I've seen big beef in Brazil, and I've seen it here in the U.S. And some people think that I am too much of a proponent for grass-fed beef, or I'm too much in favor of industrial meat. And both of those are untrue. I advocate for sustainable beef production, um, at the same time realizing that industrial beef production does have its place right now because not everyone can access or afford the regenerative practices that I talk about. And when these animals are on feedlots, being finished on feedlots, most of their diet is actually crop residues and other byproducts from the agriculture industry that can't be used for any other purpose. And so, whether it's in Brazil eating the leftover sugarcane from the ethanol process there, or here in the U.S., the corn byproducts from our ethanol industry, those products have no other use other than to sit in a pile and emit greenhouse gases as they break down. So why not turn that into healthy, affordable meat for people that can't access the regenerative meats that I talk about, which is such a small percentage of our current beef supply. So as a dietitian, I strongly believe that the nutrients in specifically red meat from animals like cows, they provide indispensable nutrients that are vital, especially for pregnant women, for children, and elderly people, but also for people who are both under eating and overeating. And that's one of the things I talked about in the recent paper that came out, too, how meat is actually a powerful ally in helping us beat the obesity epidemic.
Perfect, perfect. I was about to ask you what was the motivations for the book. So I think you said it and explained it. And what about the film? Can you talk more about the film? Because I noticed here in Brazil actually that as the film was at first at iTunes and other platforms and not on YouTube, maybe people wouldn't access it or couldn't like pay in dollar or something like that. And now that it's on YouTube, more people are coming and saying, "Oh, I just watched it. It's beautiful. They're going around the world." So
Yeah,
can you tell about us?
sure. Well, I realize that the book is, only going to reach people that really want to sit down and read a thick book, right, on all of this. So somebody like you. But I really was, concerned about these vegan propaganda films that are coming out that are being shown in high schools and colleges and highly influential. And there really have not been any films that tackle the nutritional, environmental, and ethical concerns about eating meat. And so I wanted to make something that was accessible to a high school student, to a middle school student, to that kid that's really questioning things and has maybe never been to a farm. And so the film is really different than the book in that the book breaks down arguments and really goes in a very logical fashion, step by step, with lots of scientific references. The
Yeah.
film is more based on stories, and I go to a handful of different types of farms. I start in the film in Belgium with a butcher who really wants to show the whole animal and not just little cuts of the animal. He wants to celebrate the animal. We go to Virginia to a farm that's doing all kinds of animals right there at the farm. We go to Chihuahua, Mexico, where Alejandro is really regenerating desert. And that was sort of the climax of the film because, um, climate change is such a big deal and the impact that cattle can have, especially in brittle environments that are very delicate. A lot of people don't know that the Chihuahuan Desert used to be a grassland, and he is actually regenerating. I mean, you drive through, and it's just so much desertification, and then you get to his ranch, and you're like, "Does it rain more here? Why is it so green?" And he has done all of that with, cattle without, like, extra irrigation or anything. And the interesting thing, that I couldn't really get to in the film, but I find this an interesting point. that Alejandro actually finishes his cattle on feedlots. And so
Oh,
for all this negative talk about feedlot finished beef, I think that it's really interesting to recognize that all cattle start their lives on pasture. They don't live their entire lives on feedlots, the ones that are finished on feedlots. And there are many reasons why, certain producers will sell their animals to feedlots. And usually it's just more economical for them, or they just don't have the land to support the finishing of the cattle because they need a lot more land. They need a lot different types of grasses in order to finish properly. And so, you know, uh, feedlot finishing is not 100% this evil big business terrible thing. That doesn't mean that there aren't ways that it can be improved for sure, but people think that industrial beef is this evil thing, and I just try to introduce a little more nuance, especially in the book, to that idea and through the rest of my writing.
perfect. And one thing that I always remember, like a phrase that it catches me actually about this beef and better beef. Usually people say, and we hear a lot of things like, "Oh, better beef or no beef, or reduce your beef consumption." And one thing that you are quite like you emphasize is that any beef is better than no beef. So you meat that you can afford, and if it's not beef, it can be pork or chicken. But like try to aim high, but don't exclude this kind of food from your diet.
Yeah, and I mean, I think any animal products are better than no animal products, right? So like being a
Exactly.
vegetarian is so much better than being a vegan. Just including eggs and dairy will really help a lot with getting some of those major nutrients that you absolutely can't get from a plant only diet. And then once we start pulling in more meat, or animal products in general, seafood is a great way to get really good nutrition. But a lot of people will choose chicken over beef. A lot of people go to the grocery store thinking that chicken is a better choice than beef, that it's, healthier or more ethical or, just better for the environment. And all three of those things are incorrect. So chicken has less nutrition, and you're actually more likely to get a pathogen from chicken. Salmonella is much more frequent in our food system than E. coli or other things that you would get from beef. And when it comes to ethics, industrially raised chicken here in the US are 100% indoors, eating only grain. And if you don't process them by 5 weeks, they're going to have a heart attack and die anyway. So that's not an awesome life. And environmentally, chicken are not they're not contributing much to the environment in the industrial method. So, I would say that one cow raised on grass that is raised in a way that's improving the environment is going to provide you with, 450, 500 pounds worth of meat. There's so many more chickens you would need to kill in order to get that much meat. And again, they're eating grain, which competes with us for food. So there's a lot of reasons why I would say beef, nutritionally, environmentally, and ethically, is the best meat to choose if you're choosing between beef or chicken.
Of course. And I just remember I look across my table here and I just saw this book, Diana, another book, great book called Pecuária Paralela, like parallel livestock, something like that. And it's from a regenerative farmer from Argentina. So you mentioned you visit Brazil already, and he it's living next to Uruguay as well. And I remember you also visit Uruguay, right?
Yeah,
Can you
I got to
tell
see
me?
a big group of female ranchers that all get together every so often and talk about their practices. I was so impressed with what I saw in Uruguay. And I mean, I could see
Yeah.
myself living there. That's how much I loved it. It was
I
so
remember you.
beautiful. I think I told you that, or maybe I said it out
Yeah.
loud. Like, I can't wait to go back. I made a lot of really good friends there. I got to see the beef production there as well, and I was just really, really impressed with everything I saw there.
Oh, that's great because we are quite close here. We are the kind of neighbors. My state, it's next to Uruguay, Argentina as well. And when the author, so Bruno, sent me the book, I was about to send him your book as well, and he said, "Oh, I'm really excited to read Sacred Cow. Oh my God, now we have in Portuguese. That's wonderful." So I think the language will be a good even for people in Uruguay. They can read in Portuguese. So if it's not in Spanish, the Portuguese version it can be helpful.
I'm surprised it
Yes.
hasn't been translated into Spanish yet. A lot of people have messaged me, and I have no ability to approve, or like you sort of, when you publish a book, the publisher owns the book. So we really just need a Spanish speaking publisher to take it on, translate it, and put it out. So that's how it happened for this Portuguese book, Brazilian.
Exactly. And I remember I was quite impressed when you mentioned that to me because I thought, okay, the main language, even Spanish would be first probably, but I was quite impressed that this publisher here was launching. So I'm very happy, of course.
Yeah, it's funny too because I think the first translation was Korean.
Korean, yes, I remember the cover is beautiful, like a
Yeah,
big cow, the big.
yeah. And
It's
then I
quite
think it's
nice.
also in Finnish and Estonian.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
That's good. Yeah, I'm hoping Spanish will be next, so our fellow neighbors can read it as well.
Yeah.
And Diana, you already mentioned the paper. So do you want maybe to talk about these unintended consequences for having meatless initiatives and a lot of the things that you mentioned on the paper on the nutritional side? I think people kind of know, but they don't actually know the details. So I really enjoyed reading and having all the like updated and things on the paper. So you can just tell people about it.
Yeah, the paper came about. I was doing some consulting for Meat and Livestock Australia, and was just chatting with them. They were asking how they could support me, and I told them I really wanted to write this paper. And I think there's this misconception that any paper that was sponsored by industry must be biased. And the things I say because I accept money from industry are wrong. But it's literally the same thing I've been saying. It's just, when you don't work for a university and you are self-employed, who's going to pay you to do this work, right? So the Canadians, the Australians, and Brazilians have been just extra supportive of the work I've been doing. And again, it doesn't, I've gotten in big fights with people about this. It's I have a lot of integrity, and what I'm going to say, and it's not necessarily what everyone wants to hear. I don't fully endorse any one type of practice. I'm just incredibly authentic and truthful when it comes to everything I say. But I've just had such frustration with the meatless Mondays initiatives, because in particular, when we're talking about schools and hospitals, these are very vulnerable populations. A lot of kids, for example, in New York City, there's, vegan Fridays, there's meatless Mondays. Um, about 70% of the kids in New York City who go to public school would qualify for free lunch. So they're a low income. And to reduce the stigma, they've actually just made it free for all children to get school lunch. Um, but for a lot of kids, this might be their best meal of the day. A lot of kids can't afford things. at home that maybe school lunch could be providing for them. So it's a very important source of nutrition for kids. And so to tell them that meat is bad, that it's healthier to, eat non-meat things, you know, one, that's just scientifically wrong, but two, it's these kids are impressionable, and so to put some kind of like moral agenda that's not based on fact, to influence these young minds, when they go out into the world, it's not like they're going to go out and buy, a fancy salad with all the right proteins and all that kind of stuff, to be plant based. They're just going to get a burger without the bun, or a sandwich without the meat. And, so what is that? Just, bread, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so, so I've had a really big bone to pick with the meatless initiatives. And so I wanted to write a paper aimed at dietitians, letting them know that, when their clients come to them trying to be meatless, they could be missing out on really important nutrition. Um, that requires supplementation. This is some of the nutrition that you get from eating meat you can't get from plants alone. There's also, not only the nutrition, but there's also the high quality protein that we get from animal source foods. It's much more bioavailable. It's also less calories to get your protein
Yeah.
from animal source foods than it is from plant-based foods. And we show that in the paper. We have a big chart of, how to get a certain amount of protein from plant foods versus animal source foods. And so, we know that protein is critical, that people are under eating protein, and that protein is the most satiating of the macronutrients. And
Yeah.
so, if we're looking at someone who has trouble over consuming calories, sometimes when you just up their protein intake, especially from low calorie sources like meat, they feel more full and they're less likely to overeat um, in other ways throughout the day. And, I've seen that time and again with my own nutrition practice. If I just increase someone's, protein target and tell them the best ways to get that protein, which would be beef, chicken, pork, seafood, things like that, they naturally lose weight because they're so full
Yeah.
from all of that protein. And that's something that a lot of dietitians have never heard before. It's certainly not taught in the programs right now. And even in the rejection letters that I got, it was hilarious because the first journal that we submitted to was a journal run by dietitians, and some of the comments were just completely false. And one of them
Yeah.
was, "Everyone knows plant." I can't remember exactly the comment. I wrote it on my Instagram page, but it was basically like, "This is ridiculous. Everyone knows that it's less calories to get your protein from plants than it is from animals." I was like, "What are you talking about? That's just not true." And so, so to a lot of people, meatless initiatives are ridiculous, and it should just not even exist, right? But
Yeah.
how many rejection letters we got on this paper, and honestly on the Sacred Cow book too. I was rejected from so many publishers before my Ben Bella's accepted me. It just goes to show that those views on meat, these anti-meat views are very, very deep and really
Yeah.
strike a nerve with people. And it's not based on science, it's based on emotion.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I actually, a friend of mine, and she sent a message because I shared the paper, and then she said, sent me this message. Oh my God, I just started reading, and can we make something? Can we let's do a post or something? Let's talk about this because my colleagues they don't know this. So I'm thinking, oh, everybody knows like iron, B12, all of the things that you wrote down on the paper, and the importance of these and all the efficiencies in the world. And then she's telling me, and at the first hand, oh, my colleagues don't know. So yeah, we have a big issue there if the people who are supposed the professionals who are supposed to help those patients
Yeah. And,
don't know and don't.
also, I think people just feel bad about eating meat, and they have these ideas that it's, bad for the environment and unethical, and so they'll say it's
Yeah.
unhealthy. I think when we're looking at all of the different arguments against meat, it's really important to separate them out. So, number 1, is this a healthy food? Is this an important food for people to be eating in the first place? 2, what are the environmental consequences of this food? And 3, what are the ethical consequences of this food? Because I could break this down for beans, for example. Is this a nutritionally important food? Beans have fiber. They have some protein, but it's at a high
Yeah.
cost protein. It's not a complete protein. You can combine them with rice. It's not an ideal protein for a lot of people to be eating, though. It's inexpensive, yes, but it's also high calorie. So a bowl of beans and rice is over 500 calories for the same amount of protein that you can get in, 100 150 calories worth of beef. So, and you're still going to get more micronutrients out of that piece of beef. So, but then if we look at the environmental consequences, most people eating beans and rice are not eating organic beans and rice. So, what are we looking at when we look at non organic crop methods and all the chemicals? The water use associated with legume production is really, really high as well. And so we just kind of have to look at the environmental impact of all of these things, and then the ethical impact too of monocropping. And is it better to eat one cow, or is it better to eat a bean that was grown in a way that was heavily sprayed, killing all kinds of um, animal life in that field, all of the insects, the birds that rely on those insects? There's just so many different factors we have to look at all the foods. So anyway, this paper that I wrote is just about the nutritional implications. Who is getting harmed when we tell people to eat less meat? And it's much more than just pregnant women and children. It's elderly people who are at risk of sarcopenia. One of the commenters on there, who is also a dietitian, said that the main reason people get sarcopenia is from not lifting weights. It's ridiculous. That's not the main reason. Is if protein absorption goes down as we get older, and we need to be eating more protein. So just to really have someone look at the science and explain it in a way that really makes a very strong case against all these meatless initiatives. I really haven't seen a paper do that yet, so I'm really excited that this came out.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So I was when I read your paper, I was just remembering that on I think on Netflix, like a series, they look at the twins study, and then
Mhm.
they call out all the myths, the big myths. And one of the things that I was really angry at the end is that they say not only Mondays but Fridays move by plans or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I was remembering you saying that New York schools were getting into this because of the mayor's previous um, health condition. And then you can see how one person can influence a lot of these initiatives.
Hospitals here, especially in New York
Right.
area, to go meatless, or to offer vegan entrees first, or meat free entrees first. And what this really is a cost saving for the hospitals. And so they're touting, that they're super healthy by doing this, but in reality, people's protein needs when they're recovering from an illness go up dramatically. With victims, it's like they need 3 times the protein they needed before. And so to try to get that from a plant-based diet without over consuming calories is a huge challenge. Um, but at the same time, these hospitals that are going plant-based also then promote how much money they're saving. And it's just so transparent. This is a cost saving. This is not a something that's in the best interest of the health of their patients. And that should be the number one concern, not these fake ideas about greenhouse gas emissions without looking at the full life cycle of the food.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty revolting sometimes when you see people that must be in their better health or be getting their health. Regarding the future, our health and the future, do you see people are getting maybe more aware and getting these myths even on the health side, on the environment and the ethics side, as we discuss here? Do you think they are kind of getting and understanding these topics and getting healthier, or how do you see this in the US, for example, where you?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that plant-based products are just not doing as well, on the stock market anymore. They're just not getting the investments that they were getting, before. It turns out they're really expensive to produce. People don't want them. They're not buying them, either because, the cost per pound or per ounce is higher, or probably they taste terrible and the nutrition's just not there. And so there is at the same time a growing interest in protein. I'm seeing that as well. So, snacks you see out, all the bars, it's clean ingredients, and it's, how much protein is this product delivering? What we're not seeing as much of right now, I think, is the bioavailability of that protein. So when you see like 9 grams of protein from a plant-based source, it's really not the same as 9 grams of protein from an animal source. And so, perhaps in the future, the bioavailability of that nutrient, whether it's protein, iron, or whatever, will be more clear to the consumer so that they can make better choices when it comes to what they're eating. But I think people are definitely much more interested and attuned to protein, and realizing that animal source foods are a better source and more delicious source of protein.
Of course. And another thing, so maybe if we are just gonna look at this kind of future theme about the regenerative farming system, do you think we are kind of moving in a good direction as well? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and we're going to need to produce more protein. There's a growing population, and so I don't see regenerative agriculture taking over industrial agriculture anytime soon. But I do know that, the majority of my friends who raise animals sell out. As soon as those animals are born, they have customers that want to buy that meat. That really happened during COVID, and it's still really, really strong. People want good food that's raised in the right way, whether that's, eggs, local eggs from a producer. So I think there'll be more regenerative agriculture, and I think there's a lot more education out there for farmers to learn, how to do it. And I don't think there's only one solution. So I don't subscribe to one specific philosophy when it comes to regenerative agriculture. I think, doing any step of the process better than you did it before is a step in the right direction. And so I get into heated arguments sometimes with very egocentric farmers who think that their way is the only correct way. And if people can't buy that meat, then they shouldn't buy any meat. And I think,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why another producer might not choose that specific solution for them. It might not work in their environment. It might economically not work for them. But I think that there are lots of ways that producers can do a better job. And that goes, to industry as well. I think that, we're looking at all kinds of different additives to the feed that might reduce methane. We're learning all the time about better handling techniques, better animal welfare techniques that will provide a more relaxing environment, at the slaughterhouse. And, the fact is, people are going to be eating industrially produced meat. And it's important to, also work to make sure that that process is continually getting better as well.
every every step in this direction. I remember the book from Gabe Brown, Dirt to Soil, and how he made this like a journey. Actually, the title, and he put it in that way. It was a journey, so it's not day from light that they will change everything, and how even the soil, it won't be actually better and constructing in this, in the way that he put it, in just one day. It takes some time to.
Well, that's why I like the word better and not
Yeah,
perfect,
exactly. Perfect.
because I think we can all be better,
Yeah.
and nothing is perfect. There is no perfect system, but there can always be a better system.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how can consumers? So I think we mentioned kind of this, but I remember once Will Harris mentioned that probably the paleo movement at that time in the US made him like sell out and have this big demand for his products. So how can you see consumers can help this? Just buying or talking more about these kind of issues? How do you?
It definitely buying more. It's definitely has to do with their wallet. And I think there's also a lot of greenwashing out there when it comes to like local is better. Just because a farmer is a mile away from me doesn't mean he's the best choice. It just means he's a mile away from me. So buying from producers that have really good practices, and so that might mean going to their farm, looking around, and I mean that's why I made the film. There's going to be farm smells, but hopefully they're not rancid farm smells. I mean, a lot of people could uh should I think go visit a farm, and maybe that's go spend a weekend at White Oak Pastures and see Will Harris's production, and then try to find a farm closer to them that has similar production methods. That might be one of the best ways, but definitely, using your dollars to support the methods that you believe in. For those people that have limited funds, worry about your children, worry about your own health, get yourself the one of the best things you can do to be a sustainable citizen is not being a burden on our healthcare system. So, keeping yourself healthy as much as possible, and being a responsible citizen. I mean, in the back of the book of Sacred Cow, Rob and I talk about all the things you can do.
Yeah.
And it's, a lot of it was take care of your own health, take care of your financial health so that you're not a drain on society from a financial perspective. And it was so funny because we wrote that before COVID, and the book came out
Oh, yeah,
during
that's true.
COVID in 2021. And I was like, texted Rob, and I was like, I can't believe, like, look at page, whatever it was in the back of the book. Look at all the things we said. And it's like everything that, we're talking about during COVID, like all the things you can do to be as self-sufficient as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That part, the fourth part, it's really good on that, in that sense. And even the questions people might ask, oh, but can we feed the world? That's there. You can go and see the chapter. So it's all on that last part. So I want to be respectful of your time, Diana. And do you have a final message, or how can people follow more of your work? Are you planning to come coming to Brazil again?
I might be coming to Brazil again. I know that the publisher, my Brazilian publisher, was hoping to plan a trip, so I will let you know, because I hope
Okay.
to get to see you if I get to come.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping to get to Uruguay again, hopefully next winter coming up.
Okay.
Um, sustainabledish.com is my website, although I've kind of taken a step back from all of that now, and I just myself bought a small farm, where I'll be raising some livestock with my son, and also starting a an art community. There's a
Yeah.
big, huge barn at this farm, and my first passion in the world was being an art teacher. That was what my first degree is in, and I just got really burnt out. It's really hard to say the same thing over and over again. To be criticized so much by not only vegans but also organic and regenerative farmers. You know, insulting me that I'm, industry funded, but then also not getting much support from industry, especially from the US industry. So I just am taking a step back, and I feel like I've put a lot of good energy into the world, and when it comes to this, I think this paper was sort of my last major contribution. I'll still be doing a little bit of consulting here and there, and in a few podcasts here and there. But I'm really dedicated right now to becoming a better artist, and creating beautiful things, and holding a space for other people to create beautiful things. So, or beautiful slash meaningful work. It doesn't always have to
Yeah.
be beautiful, I guess. So you have an open invitation. If you ever come to the Northeast, you are welcome to come to New Hampshire and visit me there. And uh, so my past work, I think, can be found just in the book Sacred Cow, on
Yeah.
YouTube, the film Sacred Cow, and my previous Instagram feed at Sustainable Dish.
Sustainable dish. Yeah. And this is the book. I think I just showed it before so fast. So this is the book in Portuguese, guys, when you're listen to this. And thank you, Diana. I've been seeing your pottery and your artwork. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm really, really delighted to have you here. And thank you again for your work, for everything that you've been working on this past few years. And now moving on this art and making more people having some of the your beautiful work and passion about this. So thank you and see you around.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.